Hello, BookTube. I come to you with a non-bookish related video. I guess we could call it non-bookish COVID, long COVID related. I've had a number, quite a few emails from you, and I do appreciate the concern that everybody has. And it came about from my earlier video today that I scheduled and put up the second part of the Isaac Asimov books. And in the first part, I kept saying Clifford Simak rather than Isaac Asimov. And that is part of the brain fog that I have for long COVID. I say things wrong. I make weird connections. I can't say words. I have to describe it all around. I know it's there, but it just doesn't come out the mouth. I think I've had, everybody has that occasionally, but this is very, it's bad at this point. Like you can even see, like it's hard talking at times. When it gets really bad, I don't even try to make a video, even if I'm awake enough to do it. But anyway, so I've had a few comments on the video as well as a lot of emails and with concern of how I am and wanting to know more details. Some are going through similar things as myself, so they wanted to know, what am I experiencing, so they can look at their symptoms as well. And yeah, there's lots of that on the internet. And that's what I've done. I've sort of looked and go, oh yeah, I've got that. I've got it. No, thankfully I don't have that. Um, you know, so I'll go right back to the beginning. On January 25th of this year, very early in the morning, like about 4:30, well, about 5 o'clock, I think it started. I was downstairs preparing breakfast and everything. In the kitchen, I felt dizzy. Then my breathing went funny. My heart started racing, and then a little while later, I started getting pain down my left arm. First of all, like with the dizziness and the breathing and a little bit of the heart racing, I didn't think too much. I sort of moved to the back door and sort of got fresh air and stuff. Then when the arm started paining, and I'm thinking, okay, this is 20 minutes into it or so. There's something else going on here. So I dialed for the ambulance. They came in about 20 minutes. So it was about 40 minutes or so, I guess. 45, 50 minutes, give or take. Since it had started, they hooked up all their machinery for my heart rate and everything. And the bells and whistles just went crazy. They recorded well over a 300 beat per minute heart rate. So they took me into the hospital with suspected, heart attack. They got everything ready for shocking me and everything, but by the time they rolled me onto the ambulance, my heart settled down. It was fine, and I was feeling a little tired. My arm was still aching a little bit, and then by the time I got to the hospital, but about 3 or 4 hours later, I felt just perfect the way I was before. And it was like, okay, but then they did the test and they said, yes, I had a heart attack. So I had to have, they kept me in to monitor and put me on some medication, which I'm still on to keep my heart rate down and a few other things. I needed to get an angiogram and they were going to go through my arm. So late that evening, I was put onto a ward. Prior to that, while I was in A&E, accident and emergency, I was tested for COVID. So the following day, late that following day, it came back that I didn't have COVID. But also late actually the next morning, after I was on the ward, it was noted that the patient next to me and to the right of me was a couple days ahead of me getting into the ward. So it came back that he is positive for COVID. So they sort of locked down the ward. They didn't move him. very quickly. So I was there all night, and then they didn't move until late in the evening. So, but I thought, okay, I kept the curtain between us, and I thought, okay, I didn't really get up and do anything much because they didn't want me to, and I was all wired up as well, so I couldn't really go anywhere. Um, I didn't think too much. I was like, oh, okay, I don't want to be around here too long. But anyway, the next day, the day after that, so this is now 2 days in. It's the third day that I was in the hospital. In that late that evening, they took me to a Cambridge hospital because they couldn't do the angiogram in my local hospital. And as per protocol, they did another COVID test. I think that was like a Wednesday or a Thursday. And then the next day, I was taken down to do the angiogram, and they took the little snapshots inside my heart and arteries, and there was no blockage. Or on the very small ones, apparently there was like very, very minimal plaque. So it was like that was good news. So then why did all this happen? But anyway, so I had several cardiologists arguing with each other, saying, yes, it was a heart attack. And then one saying, no, it wasn't. It was something else. Yes, it was. No, it wasn't. Yes, it was. No, it was. Anyway, I'm still on the medication. I've had no other problems with that. But then the 2 days later, or the next day, I was told I had COVID. Wonderful. So they wanted to do more tests, so I was still, and then monitor me for the COVID. So I started having symptoms. I was actually starting to have symptoms before they told me I had COVID. There was a few strange things that were happening. But anyway, symptoms developed further. I began to be tired, bad cough, breathing issues, loss of taste, loss of smell, like almost 100% complete loss of taste, other than one thing that I noticed that I could actually taste, which was apple juice. That has continued all the way through. So anyway, they did kick me out of the hospital, and I came home. They brought me home, and I felt rough. But not too bad. But then 2 or 3 days after that, I went downhill. So about 4 or 5 weeks, I sat here and rested because I couldn't sleep. I couldn't lay down because of breathing difficulties. So I sat here for about 4 weeks, a good 4 weeks. And the first couple of weeks, I don't even think I hardly ate anything much. I was just drinking water. I had no appetite. And I had all these symptoms: cough, breathing difficulties, taste, headaches, fever, off and on fever. And then, during the 4 weeks, I felt cold a lot. I don't feel cold. I generally don't feel cold. So I know there's something was wrong. And so eventually it passed, the time passed that I was no longer contagious, but I still had the symptoms. Breathing difficulties as well. And like I had three, four times that I had to call the ambulance to get oxygen. One time they took me in, but it settled down, the breathing, and then I sort of said, no, I'm not staying here because of what happened before. So, and then I got to a point where I could lay down, but I found that I could never sleep. And I still can't sleep. I get to a sleeping point, and then if I start going into sleep, I bounce back and I'm wide awake. So the best is if I just sort of hover around that and rest, which I need about 15 to 20 hours or plus, depending on the situation, per day of rest. So it doesn't give me that many hours of useful time. And it's been, like, what is it now? 8 months of this. In mid-June, I got my first inoculation. That threw me for a loop because, the nurse came, gave me the inoculation. It wasn't much more than about 40 minutes after they left. I had vomiting that was exorcist worthy, and, well, I won't go into other details, but that was exorcist worthy from a different area. I never expelled so much. Anyway, I was extremely weak, so for about 4 weeks after that, I had extreme joint pain. I had temperature, fevers, cough, and all these other things, like everything like that. So I started getting a little better from that, but I was still like I needed more. Up to that point, I was doing probably about 16 hours of rest, and I probably had a really good 5 to 6, 7 hours of actual, profitable time that I to do something like read without nodding off. After that, I needed longer time resting and less time that my brain was clear enough to read, or like that I wasn't nodding off. But I still had all this brain fog. Taste has changed a little bit. It's gotten better. I can now taste garlic, which is fantastic. It's another taste. So apple juice and garlic, fabulous. So I thought, well, I had these, I had pickled lime. That's very hot pickled lime. So I thought, oh, I'm going to be able to taste that. Yeah, I forgot about it. So I started eating that, and I was like, this is very sweet. So I had very, very sweet taste for spices. For some reason, I don't know. Orange juice, like, while I can taste apple juice. Orange juice is a bit tangy, but it's salty, and orange is the same way. And everything else, I can taste something, but mostly it's just a blend, and I can't describe the taste. Smell, what I mostly smell is dustiness. Like if you're out on a dry summer day where there's dust in the air, you got that, and you can almost taste it in a sense. Like it just sort of permeates in your sinuses. And then, but then I do smell things that are not even there. At times, it's like somebody was frying something downstairs, and I thought, oh, they were frying fish. I can smell fish. It wasn't fish. It wasn't fish at all. So I wasn't smelling what they were frying. So and I still have joint pain. I get joint pain. I do get coughs. I get hot flashes in a sense. I guess I'm going through the menopause, possibly. um, or as they say here in the UK, hot flushes, not hot flashes. Um, and everywhere I've had an injury or an operation, it will flare up in pain. My wrist, when I was about 10, somewhere 10 or 12, I broke my wrist. A bone in my wrist here. So it was very, it gets very painful. Hip is very painful most of the time. It's been fractured several times. Ribs, cellulitis in my left leg. I've had shingles in my left eye a couple times. So all these things and other operations that I've had, all these areas start paining. And again, I started looking up these symptoms. And people talk about the same ones, and some that I don't have and they do, and vice versa. One woman was talking about that she smelled rotten meat all the time. I'd rather have dust than rotten meat smell, that's for sure. And then somebody else was talking about their brain fog, and he couldn't say the word dog. He would have to describe what that animal was. And I have the same thing. It gets bad at times, and I start many videos and I just can't even continue because I'm sitting there trying to think of the word, like this, but it's like nobody is there to tell me back the word. So if somebody says back the word, I've got it, but I just can't get it out. So yeah, so that's where I am, and they did a blood test about four weeks ago, and it was found that I was B12 deficient, and that's probably another symptom of COVID. And they started giving me B12 shots for 2 weeks. For those 2 weeks, I was worse. I needed like 20 plus hours of rest in order to maybe have half an hour that I was clear enough and awake enough to do anything. The rest of the time I was like a walking zombie. That on the day before the last shot, I started feeling a little better. So I don't know if it was a coincidence or nothing, and I'm back now to sort of probably where I was before I got the B12 injections, but I'm yet not back to where I was before I got the inoculation or the vaccine. So it's a tough thing. And another thing is I'm losing hair. Like, you see the ponytail here. It's very thin compared to what it used to be. Every time I brush my hair, there's handfuls of hair. So I'm losing my hair very quickly, and that's another symptom of COVID or long COVID. Um, Nothing I can do about these things, and I'm just trying to roll with them as best as I can and do things as best as possible. So I do thank everybody for their concern and the emails. I wasn't expecting anything like this, but I thought this would be the best way because the commonality of it was they were concerned what has happened to me, and a few that, as I say, that have similar symptoms and was wondering, what it was like for me, and so I thought I'd do this video. So back to normal programming. Take care, about two.